Stampers, this is Karen Phillip. I'm a Stampin Up Demonstrator and I'm pleased to show you how to make this card. And it's a little difficult because of the bright or the light color on this, but this is background stamping, and I guess it's a technique because you create a background by stamping, but it's also called, well, that's what it is. So you can kind of see, you can see a little better there, the background stamping. And here is your sample, and it's just kind of random stamping. So let's get started. I did use the Crafting With You dies and stamp set, and I'm using the little paintbrushes for the background. And then I did cut out some scissors and the paper cutter, which is fun. That sort of inspired me to buy the whole suite a year ago. It's not a bundle anymore, but you can buy them together. I also use the perennial postage stamps for the around the edge there. And then this is embossed, and it's with the Cute Crochet embossing folder. And this I used, if you've seen my other video with the gold and the silver. It's really a cool embossing folder. The catalog doesn't do it justice. So the first thing before we even start stamping, I'm going to show you how to put the scissors together. You would think it's just putting them together, gluing, which you can do, but I wanted sort of working scissors, so to speak. So I have a mat, and you can use the mat that you can just purchase. The what is it? I can't remember the name, but I'll put it on my website. And then you need a poke pickup tool, the pointed end, and you want to put a hole in the other one. One has a hole already, and one does not. So I'm putting the hole in there. I'm taking a glue dot and putting that on the side that I just poked the hole. And it's not necessary to do this, but when I had the, I'm just putting right over the hole. When I had the, when I tried it without this, the scissors tended to go through the brad and they just kept crossing and everything. So this keeps it in place. So you put the one with the hole over the top of the hole you just made. And I have these brads that were last year's model, and I'm using a black one. And just sticking it part way into this pad here, I'm just pushing it down. And if you push it all the way down, it may bend, so I just push it in a little bit, lift this whole thing up. You can see we have a kind of a working scissors, which is really fun. Doesn't cut, of course, because it's paper, but and then we push the brad tails down, and to get it completely flat, because you want it really flat, what you have to do is take something that's, I guess, hard and flat, like the end of your pickup tool, and just push that down, and then that makes it nice and flat without that extra thing sticking up. And then you have your scissors. Now, to take it a step further, they're just silver, so what I did is took a black Sharpie. You could use our black alcohol marker or Stampin' Blend, but for some reason on the gold or on the silver, it just doesn't seem to adhere quite as well as the Sharpie does. So I'm just putting the black on there. You could do this with any colors, of course, as long as it's a permanent ink, Sharpies or our blends. And I'll just do it down here. Just coloring it in, like so. And then we have a cute little pair of scissors. And you can kind of use them. They're still, but they're not going to fall apart like before I did that with the glue dot. The next thing I'm going to show you is the paper cutter, and it's not a big deal, but it's just sort of a little, this is the paper cutter die, and then it has a little round dot, and you cut it all out at the same time. So I have a couple extra here. So I'm taking my Sharpie and simply coloring it, and then I will take a glue dot from the paper pumpkin glue dots, and I'm just going to put this, whenever you use these little glue dots, they really work well if you do them correctly. So you take it off of the plastic, put it onto the paper, or the main thing, and just slide off, just kind of pick off the liner on the top. And now I'm going to take this one and just stick that right on the paper cutter, on the bottom of it. And I'm kind of going backwards on this, but since we're on a roll here, now I'm going to put the paper through the paper cutter. We're just putting a little adhesive on the paper cutter itself just to hold it in place. Slide it through this little piece here and this little piece here, and then you can just set it down. Now, one thing that I learned along the way, on your real paper cutter, this little piece that has the opening, you can kind of see that little opening on the real paper cutter, it's about 1/4 inch opening. If you took a letter or any of your cards and you put it through this opening, if it goes through easily without any stopping or getting stuck or anything, your letter is fine. If you get stuck or it doesn't quite fit through this opening on your paper cutter, then that's very similar to the size that the post office uses to measure if the packages or the envelope is too thick. So that's just a little side note on the actual paper cutter. Okay, we're going to put that aside. Now we'll do the technique, and it's very simple, but a couple little tips along the way, I guess. This is going to be a little difficult to see because it's so light, but you'll see the technique. So I'm stamping these little paintbrushes. So I hang on with one hand and stamp with the other. I'm left-handed, so I hang on with my right hand, stamp with the left. So I'm stamping the first one in a corner, turning it, stamping down, turning it 1/4 of a way each time. And what happens is then when you stamp, you're not getting the same direction. I'll stamp the whole thing and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because I know when I tend to do random stamping, they all end up, oh, I got so many going this direction or so many that direction. But if this whole thing, I would stamp it, turn it, stamp it. Now you can see these two are totally different. I would turn it again and put this one here. It's totally different than all the rest. Turn it another 1/4, and now it's completely different than any of the others as well. So that's just a little tip on how to background stamp and to get it so it's random, because it is real easy to end up doing a pattern. And the triangle, there's not a rule, but sort of a hinter thing to do the triangle, so everything you stamp in a triangle, but this is another way to do it more random, and that they go in a different direction. So that's just a little side note there. Now we're just going to attach this. My Stampin' Up tape runner has been working too well, and it's been tearing up my paper. I think from humidity and stuff today. It's just not, it's too strong. Now I'm adding my layer of my postage, perennial postage. I'm putting that on an angle, and so just a little bit of the color peeks through, and it just looks sort of like a cool design, like a geometric design because of what these were. Setting that on there. To attach our scissors, I'm just using a glue dot on the part that where the brad went, right in the center. And I tried putting it on the first time with a dimensional and it was too high, so I'm just putting this, should do the other one first. Okay, that, and then the paper cutter, I'm using dimensionals. This I do want dimensionals, and you just put a couple of them on. And I'm using the entire piece of dimensionals, and these are just cut. I cut these along the edge so that I can have a bunch. Take off the liner. Okay. There. And then I'll just put this on here. And then for the sentiment, another little trick with punching. This is made with sending you a handmade hug. And I'm doing this in Berry Burst, and I'm just stamping it. So I want to stamp it toward the top of it, and I'll show you why. Now this is a retired punch, but you could do this with any punch that's a shape of a square or whatever. So I'm going to punch it out the entire thing, but I'm going to stamp it or punch it toward the top so that I have this much on the bottom. I don't want it centered. The one time we don't want it centered, because this would be way too big on here, so I want to make it shorter. So typically you go from the top and you try to sneak it in there, and because of the design of this, you can do this an easier way, and you go through, just through the side of it, kind of get a gauge on how much you want cut off, and then just put it in there and cut it, and then you have a smaller piece, just like that. And that's all there is to this card, but it looks so, I just think it's fun. And it looks homemade. Well, it doesn't look homemade, let's put it that way. It's just a homemade hug. So, hope that explains it. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.